All right, so finally we have some water in a tank, and it's represented with the time, the relationship between the time in minutes and the amount of water that's left in the tank, given by this equation. So how is the water in the tank changing if you look at that equation and be pretty specific? So take a moment to do that, pause the video, and then go ahead and check yourself. So you should be able to note that the tank is starting with 80 liters in it. And you should also be able to note that it's being drained at a constant rate. That's at -2.5. And T is the time that's being passed since the draining begins, okay? So that's being asked here is, what does the W of T represent? And is the W of T the input or the output of this function? So take a moment to write that, pause the video. You should be able to note that the W of T the W of T represents the amount of water that's left in the tank because it's being drained from the initial value, but as time progresses, and that it is in liters, of course, and it is a function of the time in minutes, which I think I already said. So if you were to graph this, you would start at your 80. You could do these in intervals of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, starting at a 0, 80, and then when it's all said and done, you're going to take it down to the time in minutes that it takes for it to drain, and then of course there will be the amount of water in liters, and so you should have a starting point here, and this can go up by 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and I think when it's all said and done, it comes close to 30-something minutes. You could go ahead and solve the equation for putting in values if needed, if you needed to do that. So it should look something similar to that. So if you continue to take a look at the tank and some of the functions that happens with it, where you have the relationship between the time in minutes and the amount of water the tank in liters has. So where it's the W of T is equal to the same thing that it previously was, 80 minus the 2.5 T. And they're saying that that defines the function, how much will be in the tank after 13 minutes. And so you should be able to put that value in for your time, and you should be able to solve that. So pause the video and do that. And when you have solved that, you should end up with 47.5 liters. And then how many minutes will it take until the tank has 5 liters of water in it? And so you would replace that to find your time. And when you do that, go ahead and pause that and solve for it. You should have 30 minutes. I should see work here and here, possibly down here on the lower half of this page, when I come back and look at these notes. So they shouldn't be blank, they shouldn't be just answers. Finally, in this situation, what information can we gain from the inverse of W? It can help us find the time that it takes for the water in the tank to reach a certain amount. How much time it takes for the water to reach a certain amount. Find the inverse of the function of W. So if we have that the W of T is equal to 80 minus 2.5 T. Oops, put my decimal in the wrong place there. Basically, they're wanting you to solve for T. That's all you need to do in this situation. So that means that we want it set equal to that. So we would use inverse operations. So take a moment to do that. At this point, I would hope from all of the previous pieces that we've done up until this lesson, you could solve for T using inverse operations. Pause the video and do that, please. When you solve for T, you should get that T is equal to 80 minus the W of T being divided by the 2.5. And then go ahead and pause the video so that you can do the next part where you're supposed to sketch a graph of the inverse function so that you can compare it to the previous one. So the previous one had time on the bottom, so this one is going to be, I believe, our liters, the amount of water, and then it's going to have time on the y-axis. So it's going to switch locations because it's an inverse function. So you should be able to see those. Go ahead and sketch. So it's asking you to go ahead and write which function belongs with each of these graphs and label them accordingly. And I think I kind of gave you some information there. So this is liters in time. And the first one was given to you, so yeah, now that I look at that information. This one would have been the W of t equals 80 minus 2.5t. And where this one would be the one we just solved for. These last questions just give more information based upon that. I would say that at this point, that if you still needed information on how to do these, you probably should go ahead and send me a message in Canvas, and you can go ahead and start in Math Excel. Your message in Canvas should include what questions you have.